Okay, so you've now pushed your baby out. Your body is stretching. It's signaling when you don't want to push. And then slowly, after the head is born, there's going to be a rotation of the shoulders. Now, oftentimes, care providers can get very handsy, which is why I say if you want a true natural birth, you need a care provider willing to sit on their hands. Because if they pull that baby, as they did with my son, that's when it's traumatic. Because yes, the baby's out in 2 pushes. Sure, awesome, yay. However, you've also increased the amount of tearing that happens. There's more damage. Baby hasn't had the chance to rotate. Baby's now in shock. But if baby is still alert because you didn't have any drugs in your system, here's what happens next. Baby gets up onto your chest. They lay down on your tummy, and then they slowly crawl their way up to the breast and latch on themselves. This is why the step reflex is really important, and the rooting reflex. They need to have those reflexes. They need to be alert. When babies are groggy, they do not have, or they've been taken too early, they do not have those reflexes yet. So breastfeeding is going to be harder. Your baby naturally will be doing the step reflex, massaging your belly. And then this will signal to your uterus, hey, baby's out. And it also helps massage the uterus to get the placenta to deliver the last bit of blood volume to your baby. This is why delayed cord clamping, you don't want that. You want optimal cord clamping, which means you want to wait for white. You want that cord to be limp and white. Here is why you do not want anybody clamping that cord with your baby, because your baby has 1/3 of their blood volume inside that placenta. In fact, this is also why a lot of care providers started saying, oh, there's going to be brain bleeds if we don't do vitamin K. There's going to be jaundice if we don't do this. Like babies who are breastfed get jaundice, so we need to just do other things. Because doctors back in the 1920s, you have to remember, moms went into the hospital, they were drugged up on scopolamine and Demerol. Their babies were pulled out with forceps, and not only that, but those babies were really drugged and groggy. These babies were then taken away to a nursery, and mom was taken to a recovery room. Mom was unconscious. Baby was unconscious. Nobody was breastfeeding for 12 hours. In that time, they lost the golden hour, and mom started to bleed out because the baby was not alert. Mom was not alert, so the baby was not able to do the reflexes on the stomach and massage that placenta out. So cords were clamped quickly. All that blood volume was lost from the baby. Not only that, but in addition to this, they cut an episiotomy. So the perineum was not able to squeeze the mucus out of the baby's lungs, which resulted in suctioning, which means that even babies that were alert and ready to breastfeed, once they stopped drugging mothers up, if they're still doing the routine suctioning, babies now had a very traumatic experience with their throat. Do you think they want to put a nipple in their mouth? No, they do not. They're in pain. So then you go into this whole thing of moms are bleeding out. We need to make sure that every mom has this managed 3rd stage and make sure that the placenta comes out at a certain point. We can't wait for the cord to be white. It's dangerous. When in truth, it's all of these interventions that are happening that is actually the problem. So baby massages on your stomach. Your placenta transfers the last of the blood volume to your baby. So your baby has all their iron stores until they start having their needs to have more foods. And once they have that and they don't have that iron deficiency, what happens is, of course, they go on to solid food and it's not a problem. But again, if you take away the baby's blood volume, as what's happening, they're like, oh, well, you need to give the baby iron supplements and all of this stuff because otherwise they don't have it. No, that's not actually what's happening. Breast milk is the best food for your baby. Your colostrum is the best food for your newborn baby in the first few days. That's all they really need. However, you need to also be feeding on demand. I can get into a whole other thing on breastfeeding alone, but I'm just going to keep this short for now. So after the placenta has finished transferring, that is when it detaches. Now, this could take 10 minutes. This could take half an hour. This could take an hour. This could take an hour and a half. Usually if it's taken an hour and a half, it's still fine. And this happens at a home birth. And then after that, your bleeding stops because your baby is also massaging your uterus at the same time with their little feet. And your uterus is starting to be like, okay, it's time to detach this placenta. As it detaches the placenta and your uterus is contracted and stimulated by you breastfeeding, then your uterus will naturally start to shrink down so that wound is not so bad inside of you. The more you breastfeed on demand, the faster that those contractions will be able to bring your uterus down, with your baby also doing the nice, gentle bundle massage so that your uterus is not boggy. Because again, this is another thing, if you take the placenta out too fast and then you're doing the bundle massage to fix the problem that you caused by taking the placenta out. Finally, here's the last part, that once that placenta has detached and it's sitting in your birth canal, and that is the point where your bleeding has stopped, placenta might not be out, you could probably be safe to just pull the cord at that point. One of my mentors and childbirth educators, who is very wise and has attended hundreds of births and understands physiological birth, she told me when I was helping my client, Rebecca actually had this. We were wondering what was going on because the placenta hadn't come out yet, but she had no bleeding. And so my mentor, she said to me when I got on the phone with her, all right, just have dad wrap the cloth around the cord and just gently tug, because it's safe to do this now. It's literally sitting in the birth canal. It's sitting in her vagina and she just can't feel it because she's just had a baby and everything's numb right now. This is another one of nature's designs. It stretches you out, but you're numb. You don't feel as much. And this is another thing why recovery from a physiological birth is so much easier than a recovery from a unmedicated birth in the hospital where you've had interventions. So you just, at that point, it's okay to pull the cord, but you do not want to do cord traction just to get the placenta out faster, just because of an impatient doctor. Again, you want a doctor who can sit on their hands. This is why you also say, do not touch me. Remember, if they touch you without your permission, that is assault and battery. They don't want you to know that, or they're not aware that you know that. So if you say, do not touch me after birth, I would prefer to have that placenta come out on its own. I don't care how long it takes. If some bleeding happens, I've got some tinctures, or I have a plan in place for that before we introduce drugs, then that's what you can do. You basically have your backup plan for your backup plan for your backup plan. This is why I say you need to create your birth plan at the beginning of pregnancy. You need to have the 5 pillars of empowerment. So you need to have the right mindset. You need to have the right education, which I just gave you today on physiological birth. You need to have the right environment. You need to have the right facilitators, and you need to have the right support. When you have all 5 of these optimized, that's when birth works. So this allows you to then have a nice breastfeeding experience with your baby, and you don't have any problems. Maybe you might have 1 or 2 if your baby has a shallow latch, but it's not because you're not making milk. It's because your baby might have a tongue tie. However, this can even be rectified, and you want to go to a specialist for that. Ultimately, though, your baby's going to be fine. You're going to be fine. You're not going to have any complications with a physiological birth. So if you want to know more, all you have to do is follow me on all of my social media channels, like, share, and subscribe to this channel. And make sure you're also getting onto my e-newsletter that I send out every single week that will help you in having a natural birth, as natural as possible. Not the one that leads you into falling into what I call the natural birth traps. If you go to my website, empoweringmomsbirth.com, and scroll down, you'll find that you have an option to put in your name and email to sign up for this newsletter. You're also going to get some free gifts from me, and they are going to help you to avoid the natural birth traps that are so prevalent in maternity care that you don't see coming, avoid the bait and switch, and avoid getting tricked out of having your beautiful natural birth so you're not robbed of your birth experience. You're also going to be able to know the exact steps that you need to take to get your birth plans back on track and to make sure that you actually have this beautiful transformative birth that you deserve. Because the truth is that birth is a physiological process. It is not a medical one. All right. So again, empoweringmomsbirth.com, and I will see you next week. Bye.